I have stated my case clearly, and if you are wise, you will duel me. The winner will go to the Battle City Finals.
I accept your challenge. Besides, with only one locator card, you can't be much of a duelist anyway.
Accepting my challenge was your first mistake. And once I'm through with you, it will be your last.
Greetings once again, my friends, and welcome back to Geek News Anime Night, where we take a particular series, or in this case, the Duels, of the Battle City Tournament, and we go over them duel by duel and analyze them and give our positives and negatives and have a good old time while we do it. I'm your host, Adam Mickelson, aka Drac. I hope everybody's having an awesome day or night when you're listening to this. And joining me is my usual cavalcade of fellow geeks, but because of the people involved in this duel, I must take on the voice of Bakura to be able to announce these. First of all, I'd like to announce our first contestant or panelist here, which is going to be the Brenton of Demise. How you doing, Brenton?
Oh, absolutely not.
You're not the Brenton of Demise?
No, that
okay,
voice.
That means
Oh
it's
my
working.
gosh, Adam. Oh, Lord.
Okay, and then also
I'm good.
we have my next summoning, which is going to be the Headless Shadow Blazer.
How did I lose my head?
I could explain it to you, but then I'd have to tell a 20-minute long ghost story.
Can I get the Cliff Notes
No,
version, please?
Because I'm evil, and that would imply that I'm doing something good. So, in case you guys cannot
All right,
tell,
Bakura.
we technically have Bakura's first duel in the Battle City Tournament. And can I just once again say, I love this character as a villain. I love it so much. And I find it funny that on the eve of us recording this episode, I literally watched the Duelist King, or listened to the Duelist Kingdom episode where Yugi and Bakura faced off. I love this voice because it's great to be able to summon the Dark Necrophia. It's a wonderful villain voice, and Bakura, I might get heat for this, but he is like the best Yu-Gi-Oh villain. Am I wrong?
I don't know. I'd probably give it to Pegasus, really. But that
You
was
like
me.
this voice then, do you, Shadow Boy?
Oh my gosh.
I've done this to him before.
That caught me off guard. Oh my. I think Bakura is like a good. I want to like coin the term side villain or like like a sidekick villain. He's somebody who's. I think he does really good at playing the game of, oh, I'm gonna gussy up to the big bad and attempt to backstab, but gets backstabbed in the end because he's not as sly or sneaky or intelligent as he thinks he
here's
is.
the thing that I have to ask you really quick, Brenton. I can't remember. Have you seen
Okay.
Dawn of the Duel? Have you seen the ending of Yu-Gi-Oh? Okay.
No.
So I would agree with you on that. But ultimately, Dawn of the Duel, Bakura's the end villain. Why? Because he's the servant of Zork the Dark, or I can't remember what the subtitle he is, but the monster he serves is Zork, the source of all the shadow games. And I would agree with you. He's a great side villain, but when he became the main villain,
Well, since I don't know him as the main villain, like to answer your question, is he, the greatest Yu-Gi-Oh villain? No, he is
no.
not.
Now, in this particular one, like he has a lot of really great moments, but I would also argue Duelist Kingdom, he had a lot of great moments too. I liked how he brought the cards to life against Pegasus's goons. Oh, am I the only one that remembers that? He sicked the man-eater bug on them.
It's been a long time. So it's
Yep.
been a very long time since I saw
All
the Duelist
right.
Kingdom
Well,
series,
then at that point,
so-
we have Bakura in his first duel, and he's going to qualify for the finals because, well, he's in the finals. No, we have Bakura versus another returning Duelist Kingdom duelist, Bonz. And I'm just going to go ahead, before we get into any analysis about this duel, which thankfully there's not a whole lot. I'm just going to say this right here now because this thought occurred to me numerous times. If you were going to do a Halloween-based block like Kids CW or Kids WB or 4Kids or Fox's the Box or something like that, this has to be the Halloween episode you get for Yu-Gi-Oh! It absolutely...
Yeah,
this does make a good Halloween episode for sure.
I
because
completely
holy
agree with
shit,
that.
it is just it is dark. It accounts for like all of the check boxes that you have to hit for a Halloween episode, and it's wonderful in the way that it does it. So this is totally a Halloween episode. Now, Bakura is going up against Bonz. We haven't seen him since Duelist Kingdom, and he at that point was Bandit Keith's lackey, along with his two other friends. So at that point, I have to ask this question right here and now. Do they know what happened to Keith?
Probably not, or they don't care.
Well, considering that they were bad-mouthing him in the graveyard
that's true. They
prior
were
to...
bad-mouthing him. And they were, I think they were talking about him in past tense, which technically in the manga, Keith died.
So...
Really? I did not know that.
Yeah, I think in the manga they basically say that Marik's taking control of his lifeless husk or something like that. That's why he looks paler in the Bandit Keith episodes, but I could be wrong. I'm not remembering off the top of my head, like, for detail. But yeah, he did talk about excuse me, he did talk about Keith in the past tense. So all right, well, I guess that answers my question. So let's go into the decks here for a second. There's not a whole lot of difference between these two decks. So Bakura is finally composed of fiends. He's got a straight up fiend deck. In fact, I think the theme around his deck is Dark Ruler Hades. What I would really like to know is if he still has the Morphing Jar and the Maneater Bug still in that deck, because we're highlighting Battle City cards, right? So is he allowed to have the Morphing Jar? That's actually a very good question, because I think around the time this episode aired, Morphing Jar was destroying the TCG. So maybe not. I might be wrong about that. But yeah, we have Bakura, who has a Fiend deck, and Bonz, in case people have never seen him in Duelist Kingdom, has a zombie deck. And so at that point, we have the undead taking on the demonic, which, again, this is a perfect Halloween duel. So with that being said, I'm also going to go ahead and put this out here. There are no fouls for this duel. They actually played it clean.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
There were no rules broken.
I had some question. Like, I was questioning a couple of the moves, but you have confirmed
the only thing they did wrong was they mislabeled a card. That's it.
Which one?
Premature Burial. So Bonz called it Magic Burial in this episode.
Oh, I see.
In their defense,
otherwise
they had not translated Premature Burial yet.
Fair. Yeah, okay, yeah, that's super fair. So every single card was played correctly then, and everything played out how it would in
which
an
is funny
actual
because we had a repeat card in this episode. If people remember when Yugi dueled Arcana and he used the card, and Arcana used the card Ectoplasmer, that had a return appearance in this duel. And unlike in the Arcana duel where they did not use it right at all, Bakura used it right. Holy shit.
What the heck?
I'm not kidding you guys. I went over these things with a fine-tooth comb. I made sure every spell was utilized properly, every trap, every monster had the right numbers, all of that. And no, it was 100%. So at that point, I will give a round of applause. I'll make sure to add that sound effect in. Give a little golf clap for Bakura and Bonz. They actually played legitimately. Now, that being said, let's get into what we thought of this. So just a general, did you like this duel or did you not, starting with the Shadow Blazer?
I did like this duel. I think it was nice to see Bakura duel and to see how the evil side,
Yes.
Yami Bakura, kind of outwits his own opponents and finds interesting
What's
ways to
funny is that
duel.
we eventually learn Yami Yugi's name, because he's the Pharaoh at Tem. I don't think we ever learn Yami Bakura's name. And
Oh,
I
I don't
do
know.
remember, I think in the early Duelist Kingdom manga, I think he said something along the lines, I've been around so long I've forgotten it, but I can't remember 100%. I think that was what he said though. I've been around so long I've forgotten my name, or my name doesn't matter. Brinton, did you like it or did you not like it?
Pretty neutral on this one. Uh, Considering that I was hyper annoyed and critical with the last duel that we covered. I didn't hate it, didn't love it. It was just I'm just like, okay, like this was simple, straight to the point, and had a pretty good
So
purpose.
at that point, it's safe to say that this one is a step above the last duel.
I
Definitely.
I mean, if we want to get into it again, yes.
Yeah, after that duel, there was nowhere to go but up. I'm just saying. Yeah, my thoughts are I like this duel. I actually liked revisiting it because I forgot like how good some of the dialogue is in this episode, especially from Bakura. I loved a lot of that, and even like his treatment of Marik was pretty damn good too. So there you go. We have a yes all around. It was a pleasant surprise for Brinton, as well as it was a straight up good duel from the Shadow Blazer. But let's actually get into the details of the duel. So, why is this duel happening? Well, and this is the funniest part of this whole thing. You guys remember from the previous episode that Odeon went out of his way to go and secure 12 locator cards for him and Marik. And yet,
Mhm.
Marik had already befriended Bakura at that point, and Marik still told him, just get 12. Because Marik basically made Bakura work for his 6 locator cards so that he could enter the finals. So Bakura wakes up from his mysterious coma that he's been suffering in the hospital, ditches Solomon Moto. For those who don't know, yes, Yugi's grandpa's name is Solomon Moto, archaeologist extraordinaire. And he eventually steals a dual disc and locator card, so he has one, and then eventually meets up with Bonz and crew and somehow coaxes them into giving up their 5 other locator cards in this duel. Damn, Bakura's great in this arc.
Man knows what he wants.
Because here's the thing, Bonz, we're not going to talk about him, but the other two, they were absolutely right. He's like, you only have one. We don't have to give you any more than that. And Bonz is like, screw that, we're on. Okay. And the only thing that Bakura used to justify it was time was running out. That's it. That's all he said. And that's how he won his 6 fucking locator cards. But yeah, and we get a short duel that is taken to the Shadow Realm, and ultimately, in case you guys could not tell, because Bonz is not in the finals, Bakura wins and claims 3 more souls for the Shadow Realm, and then in turn makes his way to the Battle City finals. So that being said, let's actually get into our likes and dislikes of this episode. Starting with Brinton, what is one positive in this episode?
I think that one positive of the episode is that although, and this is just me speaking ahead, it's kind of been the theme of my week, so apologies in advance. Even though it's very apparent that good old Marik is not going to uphold his end of the deal with Bakura, I I think one thing that this episode does establish well is that he's still stringing him along. He's giving him the perception that he is going to uphold his end of the deal, that he is going to be a man of his word, and that he's on Bakura's side, which I think essentially gives Bakura that motivation to keep looking for locator cards and keep finding the opportunities that he needs to join the finals, especially since as he was walking around Battle City, oh, there's 6 people in the finals, only 2 places left, and it's like, yeah, you gotta pick up your pace,
Yeah,
buddy.
exactly. Because at this point, like the viewers, they know the. Do they know the 6? Yugi, Joey, Kaiba, um, Mai had her 6.
Marik,
Actually, no, we know 7 of them as viewers. The cast knows Yugi and Kaiba and Mai, but at this point, they don't know about Bakura. They don't know about Marik and Odeon, and also the 8th duelist is a mystery still. So I agree with you. I think I think Marik's way that he was handling things was the right villainous thing to do. He still can't trust Bakura, and so at that point he will just continue to string him along and make him work for what he wants because he knows that he will do anything to get his Millennium item. And I'm also going to compliment
yes,
Bakura because Bakura the entire time is very untrusting of Marik because, you know, he's made it clear in Duelist Kingdom he is a thief and a stealer of souls. So he probably doesn't trust anybody and instead just relishes at the concept of being able to send people to the Shadow Realm. So at that point, both villains are doing what they're supposed to be doing. Marik is very ordered in what he wants, and Bakura is very chaotic in what he wants. Alex, what is one thing this episode did right?
Again, to kind of echo my original point, was it was really interesting to see Bakura duel because we don't really see that too often. And again, to keep finding interesting ways to kind of outwit his opponents and use his own opponent's own cards and spells against them by kind of reversing the tables
Yeah,
on them.
I would agree. And on top of that, it was a full deck. Like the Duelist Kingdom episode and or the Duelist Kingdom episodes don't really showcase much of his deck in Duelist Kingdom, but we do get to see quite a bit of his deck here, which we're assuming at this point it's the same deck. And ultimately we will get to see even more of it once we get into the finals. But I do agree with you. I think the highlighting of his deck um was definitely something that needed to happen. One of the positives that I will point out for this is that this duel took place in the most proper area possible for these contenders to meet, which was a goddamn cemetery at midnight.
Yeah, good setting.
Oh, yes. All kinds of yes. So yeah, like, because sometimes you can have a really good duel, but it's in a really bad location. I would argue Yugi versus Jarek or Moe was in a bad place. I would also argue that the Yugi versus Strings duel isn't necessarily in a great backdrop for their epic duel, but it still worked because the duel itself was pretty freaking awesome. But yeah, this was a perfect setting, especially considering that both of these decks were so based around ghosts and demons that it just worked. And it also worked that Bonz's little gimmick where they would all have like zombie masks and basically scare the bejeebers out of duelists to get their locator card.
one thing that I would like to add on to my response, and it's just adding to what you just said, Adam, is I also loved how the animation made the entire duel feel like they were in a old
Yes.
horror film from like maybe the 1960s, 1970s, and I feel like it just added to the whole ambiance and the whole tone of
Not only
the
that, but
duel.
the aesthetic of the
Especially,
Shadow Realm around them, that really helped.
exactly. Yeah, I thought that was done
Mhm.
very, very nicely.
Alex, another positive for the Bonz versus Bakura duel.
Definitely the cemetery. I
Uh-huh.
gotta agree with that. It's a great atmosphere for this kind of duel where Marik is gonna send them to the Shadow Realm. If they lose, and they will know they'll lose because Marik is evil and possessed and knows
Yep.
how to duel.
Do you want to know what's really funny? I tried to look for this video to send it to you guys before this episode, but I actually remember way back where somebody took the audio out of this episode and then they put the duel to Bloody Tears from Castlevania, and the music worked so
Oh
great.
no.
It actually worked really, really good, considering all the moves and everything like that. The other positive that I'm going to point out here is, I don't know what to call this, but this was kind of one of the first times where this shows up outside of the finals, where we'll get I either call it the rage draw or the insanity draw, where all of a sudden either Marik or Bakura will have this just menacing look on their face as they draw their card and then immediately see what it is. And Bakura had that, and I also like that he had a second one where he was like, it was overly sad. And it was because Bones like, what did you draw? He's like, well, I'm afraid that this duel must come to an end. It is but a shame. And he had the card that he needed to win, which I think was Ectoplasmer. And so at that point, like, I love seeing those, oh, I will draw something amazingly powerful, and have just like this menacing, insane look on their face while they pull it. Because Yami Marik, he will be pulling that quite a bit, and Bakura will as well in his duels in the finals. But I believe, yeah, this is the first time that actually shows up. Are there any other positives for this duel? Because I have no problem telling you guys, this is one episode. So, much like some of our earlier episodes, I'm not going to try and stretch this out, but if there are any other positives, please mention them.
The fact that it's one episode, that's a positive.
What Alex needs is, because you can't do it now, but on YouTube, what they basically would condense, I know Dragon Ball did this, but I'm not sure about anybody else, where they would condense all of the fight scenes of a particular arc all in one video. So at that point, you didn't have to watch the filler shit. You didn't have to watch the other stories going on. You just could continue the fight with Majin Buu. That's what Alex needs for these duels.
Pretty much. Some of them just don't need to be so long, like the last one, for example. I know we're going to keep harping on that, but it's like, sometimes you just need one or two at most. I don't know why Yu-Gi-Oh! Feels the need to like make every duel like 6 episodes long.
Well, what's funny is that later on in other seasons, the duels become 1 episode long.
Yeah. That's all you need for a lot of the time.
I mean, another issue with that is most of the episode starts and then they don't even really start the duel until about almost 5 to 10 minutes before the episode ends. So as a kid, you don't think about it, but as an adult, you're like, or at least to some extent, even when watching this episode, I was like, when is the duel gonna start?
And this is definitely one of those that did it. Actually, the way that I look at it, because I know you haven't seen GX, Brinton, but basically, this is a GX episode. This episode acts like a GX episode, where you would have like 10 to 15 minutes of drama within the universe, so to speak, in the dueling school kind of thing. And then we would get to the duel, and the duel would take like 10 minutes, and then we'd have our wrap up. And that was like every episode for Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, because they pretty much guaranteed there was going to be a duel an episode. Now, I will also state this is a positive, and Brinton can probably agree with me on this. This duel lasted about as much as an average TCG card game lasts. About 10 minutes.
Wow.
I've actually, yes, especially in this era, which is, according to the TCG players, called the GOAT format. The duels would basically last 10 to 15 minutes, no longer than that, and would be way faster than anything on Yu-Gi-Oh! We wouldn't need 6 episodes for this. And I know because I got my butt handed to me who knows how many times at tournaments. So they last like 5 minutes, 10 minutes at the latest.
Yeah, the like trading card games like these are not meant to last
No.
hours on end. It's supposed to be very quick. I do this, I do this, I do that. Your
The
turn.
only one
Great.
I think you can't say
Bam,
that
bam,
about
bam,
is
your turn.
Magic, and that's because Magic has chess-like elements to it, which add more consideration. But Yu-Gi-Oh, I think the Pokemon trading card game also is this way. It's very straightforward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would agree also with Magic the Gathering. It's not meant to be like that one's meant to be
Yeah.
a little bit more got to think about what I'm about to do.
Exactly. That's why, we have the jokes in media about it. And then I can also attest to this personally because last Christmas when my oldest niece got married, her husband is a big Magic the Gathering fan. And so at that point he'd been teaching my niece how to play, and they were actually playing a game literally from when we got to the Christmas party that day and up until when we left, which was upwards of like 3 or 4 hours. They were at that table playing that same game. Because that's Magic
Oh
the Gathering
my.
right there. Whereas Yu-Gi-Oh, 5 minutes. Tops. Because whomever has the better draw advantage is the one who wins. So, okay, we've gone into the positives here. What did this duel do wrong? I will tell you right here now, just from my experience, those god-awful masks that Bonz's crew was wearing. Like, I will give credit to the redhead because his actually looked like a legitimate zombie deal, but Bones' mask looked like his face but darker, and the other guy's was just basically a Frankenstein ripoff mask you could get at a Walmart. But I'll at least I'll give credit to the redhead. Oh, geez, those masks were god awful. Let's switch things up. Alex, what did this duel do wrong?
Hard for me to really think dueling wise anything particularly wrong. I think it was fine, really. Don't really have a lot
All
of
right.
complaints.
Brenton, any complaints?
I don't really have any complaints about this duel either. They got straight to the point. If I were to say something, I guess I would say that um Bakura needs to like super chill. Like, good lord, just like just I don't know. There was something that was a little like I don't want to say cringy, but just kind of like that really uncomfortable pit in your stomach when Bones lost and then they all got just sucked into the shadow realm. I was like, oh my gosh,
That's actually kind of
there was just something
horrifying.
very horrible about that. Yeah, like, and I mean, it adds to like the whole horror aesthetic of the entire duel. So I guess not necessarily like, oh, that was a bad thing about
Yep.
the whole duel because that's what was supposed to happen. I guess it's just more of a I felt personally uncomfortable.
And here's the thing too, like this is actually like the first time where we actually get to see somebody sent to the Shadow Realm in this particular one. Because if people remember, Pegasus didn't send people to the Shadow Realm. He put their souls in cards. That was his shtick. Bakura did manage to send like some of the Kaiba Corp goons to the Shadow Realm, but it was off screen when they did that because this is Disney era. You're not allowed to do that. So yeah, this was straight up fucking horrifying to be able to see, and it doesn't get any better from here because we're gonna have a lot of shadow duels, especially in the finals. But yeah, Alex, what did you think about that ending for Bones' crew?
It's kind of sad, really, but I guess it's to be expected with
I almost
Yami
expected them
Bakura
to
that
just
he's
melt
not going to
into the
mess around.
Shadow Realm with how things were going, because all the spirits were just
Mhm.
dragging to them, and I mean, basically, they just cover them and then go back into the shadows. But I almost expected them to just start melting into the ground. Uh, that that didn't
Yeah,
happen. But
kind of.
what happened
Yeah.
was also very unsettling. All right, so at that point, Brenton, do you have any notes for this episode?
No, there really wasn't anything to take
Okay, well,
notes
I
on.
I do. So this is the episode Shadow of a Duel. Bakura's scariest nightmare is seeing Marik. Yep, that'd freak me out too. Especially, and I actually forgot to put it, seeing Marik in that outfit. Yep, that'd freak me out too. Wow, Bakura's losing patience
like
with Marik, like the rest of us. Sorry, I had to needle that in the dream. Like, he was so pissed off with how Marik was making him do more work. This is something that we didn't necessarily talk about, but wow. So Yugi's grandpa. Crap, why do people keep using ancient Egyptian magic on me when I'm just trying to help? Oh my gosh. Instead of just going for the typical punch him in the stomach because that's his weakness, right? Nope. We have to use shadow magic to make him fall asleep or take his soul or whatever. And I'll be honest, I actually did think that Bakura took his soul when I first watched this.
And you even hear Solomon say, "Not again."
That's why I thought it was like he took his soul. No, it's basically put him into a trance or something like that, I guess, in the manga. But yeah, as soon as he said "not again," I was like, man, this guy cannot keep his soul in his damn body. So then, yes, I had to point it out. Bakura is such a great villain because, like, we had so many highlights of it. Him beating up the kid to get the dual disc. Him beating up the teenagers to try and figure out where the duels were happening in the cemetery, and then ultimately what he does to Bonz. He is a great villain in this arc. And then, holy shit, Michelangelo's in Battle City! Yeah, in case you guys didn't notice this, the voice actor for the 2003 Michelangelo, he was one of the teenagers in this episode. So, yeah.
Nice.
I especially appreciated it, the Bakura beat up Michelangelo. That was great. Of course, Bonz would be scamming / dueling in a graveyard. Because Bonz doesn't go anywhere else. He really doesn't. So, I actually did have honest questions while watching this duel. So, here's the first one. Did anybody miss Bandit Keith's Goon Squad? Like, if you didn't know that Bonz was in this duel, would you have been like, hey, it's cool to see him again? That's what I was afraid of. Like, poor Bonz. Nobody remembers him. But it's like, okay, it's great and all the Bonz is here. But the Goon Squad, do they need to be here? Don't know. What about you, Brinton?
I remembered who he was. I just forgot that he was a goonie of Bandit Keith until that part of the episode came up, and I was like, oh yeah.
Here's another honest question that I had, and this one never got answered. You guys remember how Bonz came out of the ground to scare the duelist, right? How was he breathing?
Yeah.
He buried himself alive.
Very
honest
carefully.
Question. How was he still alive?
Maybe it wasn't that deep. Maybe it was really shallow.
It just would have been great if we had this little animated straw that nobody could see in the fog but the viewer. That would have been, I'd be like, hey, that explains it. But yeah, I mean, we also do live in the era where in the WWE, they can put an iPad in a coffin so that the Undertaker knows what's going on in the match so he knows when to get out of the damn coffin. So at that point, yeah, that could happen. And by the way, Brinton, caught on camera too. His live feed on the iPad was caught on camera when he did it. So yeah, that was great, Vince. So that.
All right then.
Oh God, that headless. Or actually, no, this one, another honest question. Does Bonz still have all the cards Keith gave him, or did he take them back when he kicked the crap out of their crew? In case people don't remember, when Bonz lost to Joey, Bandit Keith basically beat the crap out of those three and took their star chips to fill in his 10. Now, we do see cards on the ground. I went back to that episode. We do see cards on the ground, but it didn't look like he took any of his cards back. And if people remember, Keith had souped up his zombie deck to be able to beat Joey. So did he take the cards back? Because I'm guaranteeing you, considering how rarity is stated in these episodes, Call of the Haunted and Pumpkin, he probably didn't have those in his deck. At least until Keith gave it to him. So what do you guys think? Do you think he still had Keith's additions to his deck?
There's honestly
I think
no way
so,
to
because I
know.
mean, the last we saw of Keith at Duelist Kingdom was Pegasus threw him down into
Yes.
the ocean.
And we can't
So I
say that
would
he
say
used.
so.
Actually, did he use Call of the Haunted against Joey? He might have used Call of the Haunted, but but I mean, considering the amount of cards that are in Keith's vest, he could have had multiple copies. I'm just saying, like it does make you
Yeah.
consider that. So then now I could get
It
into this.
definitely seems
The
like it,
Headless
too.
Knight intro was great. So this is where Bakura tells a scary story and then brings out his monster, the Headless Knight. Oh, I kind of wish he would do that for every monster he summoned. Just to give, like, because some of these cards, believe it or not, Brinton and Alex, have backstory to them. Like, Kazuki Takahashi made backstory for some of these archetypes. And some of it made it into the show, some of it made it into the manga, and others didn't. And I'm just saying, if they could find a way to have Bakura just, like, introduce all of his monster cards with some kind of backstory, I would not complain at all. But apparently I'm the only one that thinks that. So, at that point, we also have... so this is not a foul in the duel. This is just a 4 kids flub. Hey, Bonz, it's called Premature Burial, not Magic Burial. And this was where I thought I was going to have a foul. Because when he uses Premature Burial, the way I remembered the card working was you had to pay 700 life points. And so at that point, he probably paid too much. But then I look back on the TCG card, it is 800 life points. That's what I'm saying. I triple checked these cards. They were used right. So
Awesome.
there you go. But yeah, it hadn't been named yet. I guess the rough translation that 4 kids came up with was Magic Burial, but it hadn't been named Premature Burial yet. And then, holy crap, the Shadow Realm runs on portal logic. This is in particular, if you remember when Redhead was trying to run away, and then he came right back.
Right.
Am I just the only one here?
I guess so.
Yeah, he ran off to the right,
happened to die.
and then he came back from the left.
I mean, that was not like the very first thing that I thought of. So
I just
sorry.
looked at that and I went, wow, it
Yeah,
runs on
I mean-
portal logic. That's kind of cool. Does Wheatley exist in the Shadow Realm? That would actually be a really good question that I would need to have solved. And then also my last one, which I've already kind of covered. Man, this is a great Halloween episode. And fuck yeah. This, like, if I don't know if you guys have noticed this on YouTube, where people will put their VHS recordings of, like, the entire Toonami block on particular days and put it up as a long video that's like 4 or 5 hours long. So at that point, like, I've also seen people doing this with, like, Christmas episodes of particular series. So they have, like, Pokemon's episode and Ghostbusters episode. And if you're going to do a Hollywood or a Halloween mix up of this episode needs to be the one you take from you. Because holy shit, it was really good. So at that point, final opinions on this. If you were going to give this out of 5 stars, what would you give Bakura versus Bonz? Starting with Brinton.
Well, I said I had a very neutral response overall, so
Okay.
I'll say 3.
Alex.
I'll give this
All
one
right,
4.
I'm there too. I really like this duel compared to some of the other stuff we've had to suffer through. I would definitely say that this duel is above, like, Joey versus Weevil, just to name one. So yeah, I was actually fairly surprised at how well this duel holds up. Now, unfortunately, because it's only one episode, we actually have run out of stuff to talk about, but I do actually have one quick thing that we can get into, because once we're done with the next episode in this one, we're in the finals. And so at that point, the bar for what makes a good duel goes significantly higher in the finals, because we get some epic duels in that. So that being said, what would you guys consider to be the best first round duel of the Battle City tournament? You can do a top 3, I don't care. You can do a top 2, I don't care. What would you consider to be the best duels in the first round? For me, I will do a 3, unless Alex, you want to go first. Okay.
No, you go ahead.
My top duel of the first round is probably going to be the tag duel. The tag duel just had way too many things going right for it, and the fact that we had both Kaiba and Yugi's deck kind of meshing together, but then we also had this mask theme going on with Loomis and Umbra. It really holds up, and it's, in my opinion, the best duel of the first round. Second one would be Yugi versus Strings, primarily because a lot of that is the showing of the second God card and the hype going behind that, but it actually holds up quite a bit in terms of dueling logic. The only thing that doesn't hold up is the 5-card combination that is supposed to save Slifer, that instead becomes a portal endless loop. And then the third place would be this duel. This duel was freaking good, as far as I'm concerned. So, Alex, what about you? What would be your top first round duel?
I agree with the Slifer one. That one was really good. This one was really good too. I'm trying to think what else. I think some of Joey's duels were
Okay.
pretty good too. So it's hard for me to pick one. Not the very long one, but like I think Joey's first real duel and big. I'd say actually the one where Joey loses and he amicably also hands over his red eyes.
That technically isn't a first
to
round duel, but
Yugi.
yeah, I mean, it is good because it completely takes
Yeah.
us off guard that this guy has 3 copies of each Exodia piece in his deck. So I did actually like that. So that's 3 for you. Brinton, what would be your best 3 of the first round?
Well, if I had known in the future that we were going to do this, I would have I would have written down all my scores, and
that's
gone
my
based off
fault because
scores.
I kept on telling myself, like, you need to send this out via text, and I never did because I got so busy with everything
No,
else.
dude, dude, we super get busy in life, so I get it.
Yeah,
I guess
it's okay.
I guess just looking over all the duels again, just off the top of my head, the ones that stand out the most to me would be Yugi versus Strings, the double duel, and I would even say that I enjoyed out of all the Joey duels, I would say I liked Joey versus Mako
Yeah.
the most.
Yeah, that actually is probably the one that
No,
stands out.
and for all those listening, I'm not saying those are my top 3 in that specific order. I don't know what order they are. Those are just the 3 that make the most impression on me. There's
Right.
no rhyme or reason to why I said one over the other first. So interpret that as you so
All right.
desire.
And we also do have a question that has come from the listeners of these podcasts. And actually, this was a good one. So I wanted to be able to make sure that we could get to it before the finals. So imagine that there's going to be a brand new season of original Yu-Gi-Oh! Of all the duelists that are ever showcased in Duelist Kingdom, Battle City, Waking the Dragons, all of that, who to you is a must-have duelist, whether it be like he's had one performance or numerous? The only ones you can't pick are obviously Yugi, Kaiba, and Joey, because they're obviously going to be there. But who would you have return in that arc for a second or third duel or whatever? And I actually was thinking about this most of the week, and I officially have come to a decision. It has to be Panic from Duelist Kingdom, because we never see the guy again, not even in GX, which is the closest connected to Yu-Gi-Oh! Continuity, aside from another series, which I guess makes all of the continuity separate dimensions. I don't know. I'm not that far in. So at that point, I would love to see Panic come back. If people don't remember, he is the first eliminator that we meet in Duelist Kingdom. And the way we meet him is he actually beats Mai. And so Yugi takes him on because he's being a big bully. And actually, that is exactly what I would do. Is if Panic came back in that season, I would want Mai versus Panic round 2. Because considering what happens to Mai in later seasons, this actually would be, in my opinion, a better duel for her to go through than some of the stuff in Waking the Dragons, which just wrecked her character. One of the worst parts of Waking the Dragons for me is Mai's character was thoroughly wrecked in that filler arc. But yeah, that's that would be mine, is Panic. Which one for you, Alex?
I would say Mako Tsunami. I think
Mako doesn't get a whole lot of highlights. He gets Duelist Kingdom and Battle City, and that's it. He's gone the rest of the time. So I like that idea too, because I did like the concept that there are a bunch of fish monsters and ocean monsters in the Yu-Gi-Oh card game that have never been highlighted, and Mako is the guy to highlight. Especially since he has to, remake his deck. He doesn't have Fortress Whale or Legendary Fisherman anymore. Brinton, who is one duelist you'd like to see return?
I'll see more from Rex Raptor.
Yes, I agree. Like, Rex, out of all the ones that we mentioned, he probably has the most duels, but, he did get snubbed in Battle City. And so at that point, and considering what they did with him in Waking the Dragons, he really does need another duel. They need to find a way to be able to bring Rex back into the fray. Because Rex's deck actually does get highlighted in GX, but it's a different character that does it. They basically bring in 2 characters who are dinosaur-based decks, and it just makes you kind of sit there and go, where's Rex? Where's Rex Raptor? I kind of miss him. So, that being said, we have Panic, we have Mako, and we have Rex Raptor. And that's going to go ahead and do it for this episode. So when we come back next time, we will have the last duel of the first round of the Battle City tournament. And this one's going to be interesting because it is going to be Mai versus Jean-Claude Magnum. And it's one of the sillier duels in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm just going to go ahead and say that right here and now. But until then, thank you guys so much for listening and taking part in this journey. And for those asking, yes, we are covering the finals. The finals are part of this. We're not just going to go through the first round. Now, whether or not we finish the finals by the end of this year, not sure. Because now the episode count goes up significantly. I'm sure
yes, it does.
Alex and Brinton will appreciate when we get to Yugi versus Kaiba and all 6 episodes of it. So at that point, yes, we are going to be doing the finals. We'll get to them as best as we can. Until then, if you like what you've heard, or if you have your own opinion, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to wherever you're listening to this. If you're listening on YouTube, subscribe there, or on the various podcasting platforms that we are on. Make sure to subscribe there, either on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, I had to think about it, Spotify, and Player.fm. You can leave us a like, leave us a review. We definitely appreciate those. And also leave a comment on YouTube on what you thought of this duel. I would very much like to see what you guys thought of some of the monsters being played, or how Bakura handled things. That would be an awesome thing to do. And you can also support us through the other things that we are getting done. So we're doing the Battle City duels. But you guys can check out Rising of the Shield Hero Season 2 with Andrea. And we're also going to be starting to do the reviews for the movies that we saw while we were in St. George, Alex. So this is going to be freaking awesome.
Yeah.
And Alien fans rejoice because we did watch the sequel. So at that point, you guys can look forward to that. And until then, guys, we will see you next time for Mai versus Jean-Claude Magnum. Yes, he's a Jean-Claude Van Damme ripoff.